I'm John Pecora. I'm the president of the Saratoga Springs History Museum. And I just wanted to say a few words before we got to Jamie and to the treasurer's report, and we'll just go through some quick business before we get to the topic for the night. First, I just wanted to say how fortunate we are to be able to live in a city like Saratoga Springs. And it's not only because of what it offers us to do, but it's also for the rich and interesting history that has helped to make Saratoga Springs into such a great place to live. And that's why the Saratoga Springs History Museum plays a really important part in our city. It's an organization, it's the only organization that's dedicated to preserving and telling the story of the history of Saratoga Springs. The organization could not exist without volunteers who give their time and energy. And I'd like to recognize some of these volunteers right now because many of them are here. On our board of directors, Nate Betty is the vice president, Judy Mahar is the treasurer, Abigail Crotty is the secretary, Aaron Mensch is the vice president, Josh Cupp, Ed Lenz, Eric Morser, Lee Hornbeck, Greg Veach, Tom Burns, Kyle Hughes, Charlie Kenzel, and Maddie Zanetti. Now thank you. And for next year, the slate of officers will be Nate Betty will be the incoming president, Judy Mahar will be the treasurer, Abigail Crotty will be the secretary, Aaron Mensch will be a vice president, and Charlie Kenzel will be a vice president. So thank you again to everybody for stepping up and volunteering and helping us out. There are also some people that are really integral to what we do here at the History Museum, and it's the volunteers that are not just the policy volunteers who we just went through, but the volunteers who give of their time to work in the gift shop, work in the museum. Michael Levinson, who is not here tonight, he basically does all of our exhibits alongside of Jamie, so the two of them are responsible for deciding what the next exhibit's going to be, and then pitching it to the board of directors, and then basically tearing down the old exhibits and putting the new ones in place. We've done a great job of rotating exhibits to keep the museum interesting and fresh. And I think the internationally famous exhibit that's up there right now that replaced the Vice exhibit is particularly interesting, and that'll run for a while, and then we'll switch that out with the next exhibit. So it's really important to have somebody like Michael and Jamie on staff to continue to keep the exhibits fresh and things interesting for people that are coming in and keep people coming back. In the gift shop and handling the Bolzer collection, that's another big job that people take on here. John Connors and Agnes Hamburger are key volunteers for us that really carry the load with those two things, so I want to thank them. Field Horn this year coordinated the entire reworking and rehab of the archive room and rehousing all that stuff, so I'd like to thank him. Romara Jewett rebuilt the curator's room, and Leo Kellogg single-handedly helped with taking on registration of new accessions into the collection. So thank you to all of them this year. And there are also members of our board of directors who also volunteer a significant amount of time to the gift shop and things as well. Judy Mahar, Tom, and Charlie are all people that spend a lot of time in the museum in addition to their time in the board of directors, so thank you again to them. Another thank you goes out to the Alfred Z. Solomon Trust. That trust sponsors the lecture series, one of which you're at tonight, and there's a monthly lecture each month, so if you're here just because you're interested in the railroads, I'd encourage you to kind of look at our website and see the schedule of the lectures that we have and come on out to some of the other ones. Hopefully you enjoyed tonight and you'll come back. So thank you to them. We're also very fortunate to have Jamie as our executive director. Jamie takes on a lot as our lone salaried full-time employee for the museum. He oversees our exhibits, organizes our programs, leads our fundraisers, and represents us in the community. Beyond that, Jamie's really an expert on Saratoga Springs and the history of the city, and just history in general. So I'd really like to acknowledge Jamie and thank him for his work on behalf of the museum. So thanks again for coming out tonight. Thanks for being supporters of the museum and being members and coming to our lectures and stuff. And we hope to see you throughout the year. And with that, I'd like to bring up Judy Mahar, who's the treasurer, and she'll give a quick treasurer's report. Thanks.
Thank you. Welcome to everybody who came out tonight. I'm going to be very brief because numbers aren't too exciting to most of us anyway. I'll keep it short, but if you have any questions about them after Jamie, we'll be able to elaborate more. Year to date, our total expenses are up $18,000 over last year, and that's our biggest thing, and that was due to some additional expenses involved with the new exhibit upstairs. It took a little more than we had anticipated. But at the same time, our income is up $13,000 over last year. Our museum sales and admissions are both up quite a bit. We've done a little bit of rearranging in the gift shop and changed some of the items in there, and we've added a few new things for sale, and that seems to be working out well for us. Our fundraising is up, grant income is up, and our membership is even with last year. We're doing well with that. Jamie and I sat down this year and revamped our database a little bit, tried to update it, make it a little easier to work with, and try to catch some of those people that have kind of gone by the wayside a little bit. So we're pulling more members back in, and if you're not one now, we have paperwork here. If anybody would like to join tonight, I'd be happy to help them out.
Thanks, Judy. Thank you. All right, but before I start, I'm going to just want to remind everybody, if you've got cell phones, please put them on silent before our program begins. But I'd like to greet you. Greetings to all the members, museum colleagues that are here, and friends of the museum. And thank you for coming out tonight and for your constant support of the museum. Just want to take a brief moment before Richard's lecture to highlight some of the major accomplishments that we've achieved. The first I'm going to mention is in collections care. 18 months ago, museum member and professional archivist Field Horn came to me with a proposal to rehouse our archives. In 2014, researchers were working on the book Saratoga, A Centennial History. It was evident that our records were difficult to use and in a state of disarray. Field offered to take on the project to organize, rehouse, and proper storage materials and supervise all the volunteers. I mean, there was no way I could say no to that. He assembled a team of volunteers, and in 18 months, they have created a clean, searchable, professional archive that we're extremely proud of. Proper shelving was purchased, a new floor was installed, walls were coated with fresh paint, and the finding aids were found so you can actually use the archive now. I want to thank Field and the crew that took this on, and I hope I do have everybody's name, and if not, I do apologize. But Bev Mastriani, Libby Smith-Holmes, Mary Lawrence, Rumara Jewett, Linda Bullard, Gloria Dalton, Lori Anthony, Leo Kellogg, Terry Blaskow, and Lori Weiss. All of you contributed many hours to this project. They're here every Tuesday, and some even more than that, and I just want to thank you all for doing such a great job. Also, I want to thank the Saratoga Foundation, because the foundation gave us a $5,000 grant for doing this project, and that's how we were able to purchase the supplies that we needed. So thank you to the foundation. In April, the Museum Association of New York held its annual meeting here in Saratoga Springs, and we hosted the opening reception, as they always do, the Museum Association always has at a local museum when they go to town. Michael Levinson, our curator, and I, we took a look at the entire museum and said that if they're going to be here in our building for the reception, we have to make sure that we look top-notch, A+. And we said, go big or go home. So at the exact same time we're rebuilding the archive, we painted every hall, we made countless changes to all the galleries, including the orientation gallery, changed things in the high-stakes room, and installed the internationally famous exhibit. It was not in our annual work plan, and it did put us over budget, but in the end, it was worth it. Michael spent countless hours here on his own time volunteering to bring the museum up to the new standard that we're holding ourselves to. To put it mildly, it was chaos for quite a while. We were all sore, we were cranky, We got on each other's nerves. We had a couple times when everybody just needed to take a break. But in the end, we all worked very well together as a team. At the conference, Michael and I gave a presentation called Removing the Ropes, discussing our philosophies on how we curate exhibits here at our museum. It was well received, and some told us it was one of the best presentations at the conference. The Museum Association itself, members were floored. They took Michael and I aside and said, how do you guys do it here on our budget? Because we openly discussed with each other what our operating budgets are. We said, there's a few things in the mix. It's not afraid to work long hours, not afraid to work hard, creativity, and smoke and mirrors. Because we can do a lot on a little when we have to. And we really did it. And what it actually did was it also exposed our improvements to the New York State Council on the Arts. And NISCA has funded us for years in general operating support. But we were up for review, and the people reviewing us were here. So it helped us, and we just received word that we have $9,000 of general operating support coming once again for the next 3 years consecutively. So that's a huge boost to know that check will be coming. Next year, for exhibits, we're going to be working with Burke's Funeral Home, and we're opening a temporary exhibit on Victorian mourning and funerary practices. Mark Phillips from Burke's is going to work directly with Michael and I and install that opening in the spring. The next two major topics are going to include a history of railroads in Saratoga, as obviously we can tell there's quite a bit of interest in it, and we have a lot of railroad history. Following that, we're working on an exhibit on 19th century artists from Saratoga Springs, probably focusing specifically on Nelson Cook, whom we already have 15 pieces of his work in our collection, but hoping to acquire more on loan or maybe even permanently acquire for the museum. Our 2017 Alfred Z. Solomon Charitable Trust program series is nearly complete with tonight's lecture. And in my opinion, one of the best events that we had this year was when Kyle Jenks, a local performer, came and did a first-person presentation on President James Madison. Kyle's now doing that performance up and down the eastern seacoast, and I'm glad that we're lucky that we're able to have him here. We've already got one program booked for next year, and Janet Cook is going to be doing a performance with her husband on the life of Mark Twain, and Mark Twain did spend time in Saratoga Springs. Upcoming events, next Monday, we have our annual Halloween ghost tour. What can I say? People love ghosts. We didn't have anything booked until today, and now it's already a third full. So I think we're going to have a full house next Monday night. The final major event of the year is our fundraiser, the Holiday Gala. It's on Friday night, December 8th, and Steve Sullivan and Yvonne Cinnamon are our honorary chairpersons, and we can't wait for this fun event. I want to say that I'm proud of the board. They're doing a fantastic job working for and representing the museum out in the community. They're energetic, they're open-minded, they listen to me when I give them strange ideas and come up with different programs that, you might look at and say, why would we do this? And say, this is why we would do this. And if I have a strange idea that they don't agree with, they're not afraid to tell me either. John Connors is our photo curator. He's part-time, but he has all the necessary means to do anything that has to be done in the museum. Agnes Hamburger, she works as our volunteer coordinator and in our gift shop, and she too can run the museum, blindfolded. The two of them are here if anything, for some reason I was hit by a bus, they could step in and we would flawlessly continue onward. And I just wanted to say that without them and their support, I wouldn't be able to do my job. And without the support of all of our volunteers, none of us would be able to do the job here because, I do fundraising, I do operations and administration, and the volunteers run the place. And that's, you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with, and our volunteers are top notch. In closing, I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Thank you for supporting us, and I'm always a phone call away if you ever got a question about Saratoga Springs history. So thank you so much for letting me give you a few remarks tonight. Now it's my pleasure to go to the program part of the program. I'd like to introduce our speaker. A little over a year ago, I got a call from a gentleman who said he's writing a book on rails in Saratoga Springs. He wanted our assistance. I welcomed him in, and I was a little bit skeptical because you have no idea how many phone calls I get about people saying they're going to write a book about something in Saratoga Springs. And 9 times out of 10, these things don't come to fruition. But I invited him in, and we met, and we began to talk history. And I realized this guy was serious, and he knows what he's doing. He was a serious researcher and wanted to write an accurate history on the railroads in town. We met many times. We looked over photographs. We even got in the car and took a drive around the city and looked at where the stations were and where the rail lines were. And it was a pleasure to work with him on the project. So Richard Shea has written a book called Rails in and Around Saratoga Springs. He's going to talk to us about that tonight. So now it's my pleasure to welcome the Alfred Z. Solomon Charitable Trust keynote speaker, Richard Shea.